morning.
We're going to get started right now. I'd like to welcome us especially to this webinar focusing on ATSEPs, the air traffic safety electronics professionals globally, but our focus is actually on Africa today. The reason we're having this seminar basically is that though the aviation industry was hit by the pandemic, that's COVID-19, with airlines practically grounded globally, except for emergency evacuation of medical supplies, airports and airspaces are closed to regular traffic. However, NSPs have continued to provide mission safety critical services without any form of attendant revenue for upwards of 3 months now, while OPEX, operating costs, still goes on. Well, the ATSEPs, which are a critical part of the NSP, are therefore under pressure also to deliver under a war-like situation. So having said that, we shall be x-raying in our conversation today the challenges and opportunities occasioned by COVID-19. Once again, I'd like to welcome my panelists and all participants from all across Africa and the world. Welcome to this webinar. My name is Engineer Frank Ogochukwu. I'm actually an ATSEP with communication and surveillance ratings, also an IT professional and a cybersecurity expert. I'm basically the Chief Technology Strategist for the Mishael Consulting. It's an African aviation consulting implementation and training firm. So I'll be moderating the session today with my distinguished panelists. So I welcome you to an exciting time, rich conversation, insights that will push ATSEP profession forward globally. So ladies and gentlemen, you're welcome. I'd like to introduce my panelists this morning, distinguished panelists from all across Africa, basically. In no particular order, I'm going to start with the first person. The first director for Africa, Frank Kofi Apeagyei, is here with us this morning. He's the director for Africa region, and he works for the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority. You're welcome, Mr. Frank.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm going to also introduce another gentleman, Andrew Mwesige. He's from Uganda. He works for Ugandan Civil Aviation Authority as well. He's an ATSEP. He's the immediate past president of the Ugandan Air Traffic Safety Association. Mr. Andrew, you're welcome.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, Africa, from Uganda.
Okay, I'd like to welcome another gentleman, Nsiri Khaled. He's from Tunisia. He's actually the president of the ATSEP Association in Tunisia. He also works for the Tunisian Air Navigation Agency. Nsiri, you're welcome.
Thank you so much. I am very happy to be here among you.
Great.
Thank you.
Another gentleman I'm going to introduce is my brother from another country. You know, yeah. So he's Sam Mahalangu. He is the president of the ATSEP Association in South Africa, and is also a training coordinator for ATSEA, Aviation Training Academy in South Africa. I'd like to welcome you, especially Sam, to this webinar.
Thank you very much, Ifeni. I'm delighted to be in this panel. Good day, Africa.
Well, I have some other people I'm going to introduce. I'm going to keep them aside for now. Special people I'm going to introduce, so I'm not going to choose them now. When the time comes, I'm going to introduce the gentleman, another people I'm going to introduce. So I'm going to hold that back for now. So you're welcome, gentlemen, to this webinar. We're going to get started. I'm going to start with the IFATSEA Director for Africa, Mr. Frank. Now, there are quite a lot of people who are here on this webinar who do not even know what the ATSEPs stand for. Could you tell us in just about 2 minutes, who are ATSEPs and what do they do in the aviation value chain? Mr. Frank.
Thank you very much. And once again, let me take the opportunity to say thank you, Debbie and Michelle, for this collaboration. I think that we would see much of this as the time went on. ATSEP is an acronym, and the full meaning is Air Traffic Safety Electronics Personnel. Air Traffic Safety Electronics Personnel. And these are engineers who are involved in the maintenance and the coordination and monitoring of mission critical systems which are used for air traffic services. So in terms of pilot to air traffic control, in terms of situational awareness, in terms of an aircraft flying over an airspace and having been controlled by an air traffic controller, the kind of instruments and systems that require to facilitate that service are all maintained, monitored, adjusted, and maintained by all ATSEPs. So basically that is the ATSEP and what we do. In fact, when we talk about air traffic services management, the ATSEPs remain the technical nerve center in terms of air navigation services by the kind of facilities and services that they provide. So without the ATSEP, there will be no air traffic services. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for that quick introduction of who the ATSEPs are. I mean, they are actually the fulcrum in which air navigation services stand. Without them, there's something like airline operation as well. There's no traffic control services. That's not going to happen. So I thank you for that introduction. We're going to go straight to a quick analysis of what's been happening in various environments with regards to COVID-19. So I'd like for us, gentlemen, take 2 minutes and just share with us your contingency plan for COVID-19. What have you done, since COVID-19 took place, started in your own environment, in terms of how prepared you were and continue also to deliver service going forward. So I'd like to start with Sam.
Thank you very much, Frank. I think we pretty much are aware almost across the globe that the pandemic has actually had a huge impact on how the aviation operates. I think South Africa was not spared as well from the challenges that came with this pandemic. As an airspace in the southern tip of this continent, obviously we had to introduce some contingency measures in ensuring that the safety of those personnel that are still required to continue providing the safety critical systems, they are being introduced. So one of the initiatives that we had to put together is the question of trying to encourage people to stay at home and develop some kind of a rostering system where people will only respond to essential services. We keep the bare minimum staff in terms of providing the support at our respective station. So essentially what we went on and introduced is more of a remote working. A lot of activities we are looking at introducing them or responding to them via remotely, where we can log onto some of our system and restore the services. And your daily routine, what we used to have, obviously we have sort of halted that a bit. We not necessarily continue with the preventative maintenance. Our emphasis is just more on ensuring that our system remained safe and operating, and we ensure that obviously the kind of service that we are currently offering to those that are transporting medical equipment or food or any other essential services that we need during this era, they've got the service available, and the ATSEPs, they are fully behind the initiative to ensure that we keep the skies open, but obviously fundamentally we keep the safety of our members at the forefront. We ensure that we don't expose them to any challenges that might have dire consequences.
All right, thank you very much. I mean, which basically shows that you had your plans ready to activate, with regards to COVID-19. At least keeping the personnel safe, and also keeping the airspace available for emergency supplies, medical supplies, food supplies, and all of that. Thank you very much. I'd like to go to Khaled right now. Could you just tell us your experience in terms of how prepared you were in Tunisia with regards to COVID-19?
Yeah, also Tunisia, COVID-19. Let's talk about some statistic, some number. In 23rd March was the first case in Tunisia. Now we have 1,043 cases. We have 843 reached and 47 deaths. May God have mercy on them. So the stricter procedure for permanent sterilization, hygiene, wearing of mask, and physical spacing for 1 meter with permanent cleaning of equipment and car. It's true We are talking about creating new spending, but security is required. The Athena Association has also provided masks to its member, especially given the insufficient number of this in country like over the world. As we have provided disinfectants for all team in airports and for all our members. This is some example bought by our Athena, by our association to all our members in airports. The security is important thing for us. So we follow them precisely and completely over the day in unit that we have created in all airports to resolve problems that arise or interfere effective to coordinate with concerned. We also provide them every time with advice on how to prevent coronavirus on our Facebook page. So this is globally what we was doing in these 2 months of COVID-19. But thanks God, in this week, we have 0 cases. We do a great job. So may Allah have mercy to all the death of the world in this epidemic. So this is globally what we have doing for this crisis.
All right, thank you, Khaled. I appreciate that. Just unfortunate that we're losing lives globally occasioned by COVID-19. And as I pray that everyone who's lost their life, that they rest in peace. Andrew, can you talk to us?
Yeah, thank you, Frank. For the case of Uganda, I think we're doing just about what all our colleagues are doing, and that is in the area of firstly, occupational safety and health, because as we know all that COVID-19 is an occupational safety and health issue. So the first thing was to ensure that our ATSEPs are actually safe. And we had to introduce measures similar to what Sam mentioned and Khaled there mentioned. You have to ensure social distancing. You have to ensure that the sanitizing, and lately wearing of face masks as you come to work. So so on the side of occupational safety, that's what we did, social distancing, good. And then for the side of aviation safety, because of course we have to keep the airspace open, we have to keep operations running and to keep the supply chain working, especially for cargo. So we had to ensure that we have a skeletal staff. We had to ensure skeletal staff are kept at the station, especially shift workers. So that we made sure that the shift is up and running. And then for other regular staff, we asked them to to go home, to work from home, and deliver their targets from home. So basically, we are having skeletal staff right now, and working from home, remote maintenance of equipment, coupled with remote reporting to supervisors. So really, we have embraced some kind of automation so that at least we can keep the supervision on while ensuring the operations are also being manned very well. So in a nutshell, that's what we are doing in Uganda. Thank you, Frank.
All right, thank you very much, Andrew. A gentleman just joined us who happens to be the president of the National Association of Air Traffic Engineers in Nigeria, Mr. Ishaya Dung. You're welcome to the forum this morning.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone.
Okay. Great, you're welcome. We've actually been sharing about what contingency plans we had in different countries, in our various environments with regards to COVID-19. I'd just like to have your take on that. What did you guys do in your own environment?
Well, having been taken unawares like many other nations, the Nigerian government at both the state and federal levels imposed a lockdown as a drastic measure to slow down or curb the spread of the virus. The measures recognized aviation as an essential service in the fight against the pandemic. Hence, there was need for ATSEPs to provide their services. We commenced holding management meetings to arrange protocols for our shift duty, provided for all personnel involved, and work went on normal. At the same time, I, my colleagues, and many others around started practicing personal hygiene by proper washing of hands, use of hand sanitizers, and wearing of face masks. Some of the items initially became scarce and expensive in our surrounding markets due to the rush. We also started getting used to not shaking hands in keeping with social distancing. I personally observed 2 weeks isolation at home to be sure of my COVID-19 status, during which I was working from home, like many other of our management staffs did by also working from home. Until date, we still alternate by working from home. And last but not the least, I consistently pay attention, just like all of our members have been advised to do, to get information concerning new developments on COVID-19 from credible sources, including the Nigerian government, the Center for Disease Control here in Nigeria, and the World Health Organization, and other credible media sources. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much, Ishaya. We're going to go straight to our discussion questions, convention this morning. But before I do that, I've got some very surprised guests, with us this morning.
I can see Thorsten.
With us this morning. So I'm just going to introduce them, but I'm going to call them up later on to say something later on, but not now. But I'm just going to introduce them to us so that we can actually know who they are. I'm going to start with the IFATSEA Executive Secretary, all the way from Portugal, Cristina Félix. She's here with us today. Also, Costas Christoforou from Cyprus. He's the Regional Director for Europe for IFATSEA. Then, of course, our International President, IFATSEA, Thorsten Wehe, is also here. So, also I have Boni, Dibate, a partner organization to IFATSEA from CANSO, all the way from South Africa. Boni is also here. Like I said, I'm going to call them up when I'm ready so that they can speak to us. So, ladies and gentlemen, you're welcome to this webinar today. All right, so we're going to go straight to the questions, and I'm going to start with Sam. Basically, because we're going to look at issues that are important to ATSEPs. We're going to try and drill down and look at ways, what are the challenges, what are the opportunities that we have, and what are the innovative ways we can begin to work in the new normal. I mean, a lot of people say they work from home now. I mean, that's something that is new and interesting to ATSEPs. So we're going to look at all of this. So I'm going to start with Sam this morning. Basically, we do know that the aviation industry is one of the worst hit by COVID-19. What would you consider are the quick wins or long-hanging fruits for the profession to basically continue making a meaningful contribution to the industry during this pandemic-driven crisis period? So Sam, I'd like for you to address this. What do you think are the low-hanging fruits or quick wins during this period for ATSEPs?
Thank you very much, Ifeanyi. Excellent question. I think as we started with this conversation with our preamble that we operate in an industry that is mandated by the state to provide the safety critical services to protect the safety of the flying public. And essentially, therefore, it is incumbent upon us to continue to provide this service when there is even a clarion call for business to halt their operations and the workforce are implored to stay at home to cap the spread of the virus. Well, our profession as ATSEP professionals, we provide an essential service, which we are still expected to ensure the availability, the reliability, and the maintainability of our system that aid the aircrafts to transport the medical supply. So what I would regard as the quick wins, specifically for the ANSPs or the low-hanging fruits, I think one, we just need to ensure that the safety of this personnel is addressed, and then through the procurement of the safety gears, as my colleagues have already spoken about, so that they can be able to continue discharging their responsibility. And this is important as we tend to share a lot of test equipments, and we visit the remote sites that are not essentially manned by people who can regularly disinfect the place or conduct the necessary screening. So that becomes pertinent that we address those areas as well. I think that's one of the quick wins that we can tackle. Secondly, the activation of the business continuity plans. I think we should encapsulate the remote working and equip the ATSEPs with the necessary tools of trade to be able to discharge these responsibilities remotely. Because one thing that we don't want to find ourselves, it's having to deal with another catastrophe whilst we are still having the pandemic within our horizon. Thirdly, I think what it is important as well at our control centers, it is highly recommended that whenever there is an equipment that or the requirement for an ATSEP to respond to a failure, I mean, such systems just to be released so that the ATSEP can go in and undertake those activities of trying to restore the service. And this can be done whereby our colleagues from the air traffic services, they can combine sectors or move to another position to allow space for the ATSEP to go in there. I think in such instance, there will be obviously an expectation that the ATSEPs that are working on those systems that have failed, particularly the control centers, safety precautions are being adhered to, sanitizing of the area, we maintain social distancing, and we disinfect the area once the task it's complete. I think all our hands are on deck now. It's an irony because we are operating in an industry where safety is paramount for us, and we always try to ensure that the safety of the flying public is maintained. In this instant, I think the light is on us that we need to ensure that we are safe as well as the provider of these critical services. Thank you very much, Ben.
Thank you. I mean, these are a couple of quick wins or low-hanging fruits I just mentioned. I'm just going to run straight to Andrew from Uganda. No, basically, I mean, technology actually, it's something that we need in the aviation industry. It's a high-tech environment. Aircraft manufacturing, the airline industry, and all of that. But basically, the aviation industry has always been very conservative and reluctant to adopt commercially off-the-shelf and cloud-based systems due to potential security concerns. Hence, prevalence of ground-based systems that are human resource intensive to maintain. Where do you see the aviation industry post-COVID-19 with regards to adoption of technologies? Do you see African NSPs accelerate the adoption of these technologies going forward? Andrew, please.
Yeah, thank you so much, Frank. And yeah, I think you're right that states and NSPs are a little slow on adopting some of these technologies, including courts. However, I also want to mention that due to the nature of the industry and the manufacturers, there is also that element of having a niche in the market. So you find that many of them actually are also not for courts equipment. They really prefer, you know, the proprietary kind of equipment. You know, so I think it is a double-edged sword, but I think since courts gives us the advantage of economies of scale, which in turn drives the cost of equipment low, it is something that I believe we are moving towards, you know, to which we shall embrace with time. It may be a little slow, but I'm sure that's where we're heading. Because, for example, right now we've seen the revenues of most of our, you know, the aviation industry is plummeting, you know, at a rate that we have never, an unprecedented rate, something that we've never thought would happen anyway. So once you have economies of scale, they do drive the cost low of infrastructure, and when you drive the cost low, then actually you become competitive. So I see us actually moving towards courts, systems, equipment, subscription based. It's just a matter of time. We'll be there.
Okay, great. So what do you advise ATSEPs going forward to do in terms of recommendation of the kind of equipment and systems we need to have in our various NSP environments? Andrew.
Yeah, I think, oh, thank you, Frank. I think ATSEPs, we need to be flexible. We need to be willing to learn new skills. For example, we have, you know, if let's say we go to, you know, service-based systems, we have to be able to, you know, to be flexible and leave the legacy technology and move on to, you know, future technology. learn about, satellite if you haven't been there, learn about, expand your IT knowledge, be able to learn, to advance your skill set as an ATSEP so that you can be able to remain relevant. And I think this will also come, I think that there is always a fear of these technologies taking away the ATSEP job, but I think it will create enormous opportunity, with this change in technology. Many times when these new things come up, we are full of fear, but actually we fail to look at the silver, the silver lining on the cloud. So I believe there's going to be lots of opportunities that are going to come with these new technologies. And I think it is up to us as ATSEPs to be willing to learn and expand our skill set to be able to remain relevant in the changing environment. Thank you, Frank.
All right, thank you very much for that. So we must be open and flexible to change and be able to actually adopt new things that are coming up in our various navigation system, NSP's environments globally.
Sure.
I'm going to go to Ishaya right now. CNS ATM maintenance encompasses utilizing test equipment that is mostly shared amongst ourselves as ATSEPs. With the emergence of this pandemic, how do we respond to the new way of conducting the business with social distancing, etc.? How do you see the future unfolding in this regard? And do you see the maintenance architecture changing for ATSEPs, basically? Mr. Ishaya, please, how do you respond to this?
Yes, basically, from what we have on ground now, we are becoming more and more conscious of how safe our operation should be by observing what presumably is the only solution against the COVID-19 at this point in time, which is the basic hygiene that we have to practice, social distancing and the rest of it. It is already reflecting in our work as ATSEPs because we have to share tools. We have to also work on the same equipments day in, day out to provide the services that are expected of us. So we have to keep appraising the situation. We have to keep also making adjustments where necessary so that our lives can be safe, so that operations can be efficient and also safe, because aviation is all about safety. As we handle the safety of lives in the air at all times, safety, of course, cannot be compromised at any point in time. So we also share equipment like even operational vehicles that sometimes are not enough within the operational domain. And you find out that quite a number of ATSEPs have to occupy the same vehicle at the same time to try to meet up their obligations in terms of maintenance, either preventive or repairs. So you discover that in most cases, the social distancing cannot be effectively observed. Therefore, the use of other protective measures like the use of the face masks and the other hygiene methods become very, very imperative. So going forward, of course, as ATSEPs, we have to just keep brainstorming and thinking of the best way that we can protect our ATSEPs from any infections that could actually cost their lives. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ishaya. I mean, so again, it underscores the point that we need to keep more of hygiene precautions, take care of our health, and be able to also work from home. I mean, that's where everything is basically pointing to. Have less people in the workplace and have more people at home, basically working from the home. So like Andrew said, automating the process of monitoring and all that is actually going to become critical going forward. Yeah. I'd like to I'd like to go to Tunisia right now. Let me speak with Khaled. Basically, efficiencies and cost cutting will almost be central in discussions among NSPs. I mean, the reason being that for over 3 months now, NSPs have not earned revenues, basically. So efficiencies, cost cutting would be central in their conversations today. Would you say that compensation should extend to assets of the organizational structure and staff complement, and still incorporate the element of safety and not compromise the provision of the safety critical service, basically safety of the airspace. What do you say to that, Khaled?
Thank you. So the efficiency is necessary, and we are talking about a minimum efficiency here, which must be provided, especially since we all know the problem that arises all the world of the training of our ATSEP, in particular by not putting our license in ICAO Annex 1 to make the training as a necessary thing. So for the digital information and information systems and their impacts on the safety, today IFATSEA, for example, requested ICAO on the final work paper to make an ATSEP especially in cybersecurity, for example. So the efficiency is a necessary thing, but the important thing for me is the training of the ATSEP, because here we are talking about the cost of training and all for the INSP. I think
things we've lost.
Yeah, you lost the connection.
Maybe actually, as we wait for Frank to come up, I wish to add something to what Khaled has just submitted. You find that previously the NSPs have been, the states have empowered the NSPs as companies to be able to procure most of this infrastructure. But as you see, I think I've been reading a number of reports from, IATA, ICAO, from CANSO, and you really see that our revenues have actually been greatly, affected. And to that effect, you may find that we may not be able to procure infrastructure as we used to do before. And yet the other thing that the NSPs find themselves caught up in is that you cannot reduce your infrastructure. I mean, if you have 5 radars, you won't say now because of COVID, I'll switch off 3. You have to keep the same infrastructure running. The ground systems have to run. So the operational cost is constant, and yet the revenue is down. And then you also cannot compromise on the safety of the airspace. So I think we may want to start thinking about new models of financing, infrastructure financing, and things like maybe leasing. You go to the manufacturer and maybe they give you the radar, and then maybe you work out maybe a 10-year repayment plan, because previously I think most of the states have been buying in cash. You buy it and it's yours and it's there, there and then. But maybe we may want now to think about new ways of of financing infrastructure, embracing some of this new technology that may give us some breathing space, because we can't afford now to spend like we used to spend before, pre-COVID. So going forwards, I think we as NSPs, we may want to start thinking about other models of infrastructure financing that will help us to scale out, give us time to be able to repay, and yet also not compromising the safety of the airspace. Yeah, that's what I want to add to what Khaled submitted.
I think, if I may, you are absolutely right, Andrew. I think to your point, especially in terms of the infrastructure acquisition, you will find that a lot of our systems, they've got a lifespan, be it of 5 or 10 years. I think with the current situation where we find ourselves in, we might have to get to a situation where we keep that system running beyond its lifespan. A system that is supposed to give us the service for about 10 years, we might have to run that for 15 years. And that will take the initiatives of the ATSEPs being innovative as to how do we keep that system alive and ensure that the safety of the flying public it's guaranteed. I think one other point that we have raised, which is pertinent, that all these resources that we're talking about, these infrastructures, they come at a huge cost. I think as the continent, there's been a lot of talk or deliberations of sharing the resources. Maybe we need to extend that conversation to the infrastructure as well. Why would I buy 30 radars and only to find that actually I don't even use all 30 of them? Why can't I use some of the services that Uganda has procured to manage my airspace? So if we can get to the point where the continent as a whole, we start to embark on this journey of the deliberation on single African sky. Maybe this is an opportune time for us then to look into that direction and say, this infrastructure is coming at a cost, and we can see that the continent has been worst hit by this pandemic, and we never know as to what's going to happen next. Maybe this just might be the beginning, or for all we know, we could be confronted with something that is way catastrophic than what we have. So we need to get ourselves, I think, to that point where we say Africa needs to work together. We need to get to the point where all the infrastructures are being shared so that we can continue to maintain the safer African skies.
Okay, I think this is very important for us, Africa, basically, because I'm looking at the issue of, again, efficiency and the way we procure our equipment. I mean, Sam, what you actually talked about is actually very critical. I mean, looking at the single sky system for Africa. Now, reduce procurement, operating costs, enhance efficiencies will continue to be an issue in the aviation industry, particularly for ANSPs. Therefore, we need to change our service rotation approach to deploy these technologies. Basically, it has to happen. Now, what you mentioned about is that basically collaboration of African NSPs to the procurement and maintenance of navigation infrastructure on a shared service framework. So, looking at the whole of Africa, basically, we can actually have partnerships and collaboration amongst African countries to be able to ensure that rather than buy several equipment that are not useful, that are going to be idle, so to speak, we can actually have shared services. I mean, look at Nigeria and Benin Republic and Togo and Ghana. You mentioned the radar systems. The Nigeria actually covers the Accra all the way up to Accra. So why would they want to buy radars along that region when they can actually do collaboration and partnership and reduce costs, reduce both procurement cost and maintenance cost as well? You know, that for me, that's very critical. I'm going to address this question to the African Director for IFATSEA, Mr. Frank. NSP's product products is essentially information that enables the same. As ATSEPs, we provide the underlying infrastructure that receives, processes, transmits, and even generates such information to various stakeholders. With the issue of data privacy, protection of data, data ownership, and data sovereignty being amplified by the new normal because of increased digital exposure, what are ATSEPs to do in complying with data protection regulations, basically in their various environments? Mr. Director, please. Okay, Frank, your mic is muted. Your mic is muted.
Sorry.
Your mic.
I'm sorry. I hope you can hear me now.
Yeah,
can you hear me now? Yes.
Yes.
Thank you very much. And I'm saying thank you, namesake. And we lost you a while ago.
Yeah, that was a glitch. Sorry about that.
Technology stuff.
Yes. That was a glitch. Sorry about that.
Okay, thank you. This is a good question and a nice one. What we need to recognize is that unlike Europe and a few other countries, or let's say some other continents as well, the ICAO regulations, which are normally regulations binding all civil aviation authorities, are what most countries, states, use, translate, and form them as their states and national regulations that they are able to use and operate upon within their local aviation industry. When you go to Europe, you would realize that they have a different kind of complying with such regulations. And I'm going to say this, bear in mind that we have some of our European ATSEPs with us. If you look at the Chicago Convention that gave birth to the ICAO annexes you would realize that under the Article 38, it provides the leeway, that's the way I'll call it, for countries that are unable to comply or differ in terms of what the regulation or what the law is, and then file the difference to ICAO that, okay, for regulation ABC, I am unable to comply, and this is the way I am doing mine. So you file that as a difference. You do not have that kind of situation in Europe, because Europe, in the interest of safety, has eliminated that part of the Article 38, which means that all states would have to comply by the regulations that are enforced by what they call the European Aviation Safety Agency in Europe, EASA for short. In Africa, we do not have a situation, we do not have any agency that is mandated to enforce the regulations that we use in our local settings or in our local aviation. So in terms of the compliance of the regulation for data protection, data privacy, and data sovereignty, as you put it, it would differ from country to country, from ANSP to ANSP, as far as Africa is concerned. We do not have what we call, even though there's a uniform regulation in terms of ICAO, but in terms of the practice in different countries are not uniform. So there's nothing like uniformity there. However, this would be my suggestion in terms of, or my contribution in terms of what ATSEPs can do in complying with the regulations. What we need to do as ATSEP is that we need to ensure that we are able to create or establish our own processes and procedures out of the regulations that we have. So in terms of the regulation for the data protection, data privacy, and data sovereignty, what is important for us is to create our procedures in terms of how we would apply and comply with those regulations. Those procedures and processes will enable the regulator, our local regulator, to be able to use that to check us in terms of how we are proceeding in complying with the regulations on data protection, data sovereignty, and data privacy. Apart from that too, it would also allow us to be able to quickly spot the infractions that we may have on those regulations that may have been occurred or may have been caused by one ATSEP or the other. So if we are able to create such processes and procedures, it would go a long way to help us in terms of complying with the regulations. What we currently have is that, yes, there are the CAs in most countries. They have the regulations, but I doubt how many of the ANSPs in Africa are able or have processes and procedures in place that prescribes how the ATSEP ought to comply with such regulations. That I doubt how many of us, how many of the ANSPs in Africa have. So it's important that we look in that direction. And once we're able to establish that, it would be the first point for us in being able to ensure that we are able to comply with those regulations. That would be my take. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you, Frank. I mean, that's pretty good answer and good insight. That means for ATSEPs in Africa, we'll have some job to do in terms of complying with data protection laws that are basically available for us to comply. So we need to create, I mean, the ICAO SAPs is minimum standards, basically. So each country basically tries to go a notch higher than the minimum standards that ICAO has set. So I think for Africa, we need to begin to think towards that direction. Not to remain at the minimum standards or even below the standards and not publish to ICAO that we're able to meet that requirement. We should actually begin to go way ahead of that from now on. So it's a point we need to basically look at and deal with going forward in terms of where we need to be as ATSEPs, globally. So that's something that's very important for us to note, going forward. So that's very critical. I'd like to take the next question, and I'm going to talk to Sam again. Now, we are moving into the new normal, basically. And this places a lot of challenge on the current skill set and the professions. What would you say as a profession? Would you say as a profession is at a risk of being obsolete? I believe there would be definitely a need to review the skill set of the current ATSEP pool. Also the licensing framework, as well as the training methodology in view of COVID-19. What would be your thoughts basically on the fact that we need to review the skill set of the current ATSEP pool, look at the licensing framework, as well as training methodology for ATSEP in view of COVID-19? Sam, please, what will be your thoughts on this?
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Frank. I think what I was saying when I was on mute, I said I didn't get the last part of of your question, but I think I'll address the first 3 or 2 sub questions that you have asked. Absolutely. I think we should gear ourselves for the new normal that is upon us, and we can't be using the tools of today to fight the battles of tomorrow. In fact, I dare say that any institution that is still hoping to continue as normal, as if nothing has happened, should maybe start preparing to close shop. And the survival of the ATSEP profession, it will entirely depend on how we respond to these challenges. I think business continuity plans should be the order of the day for any business. We should be able to assess our risk of losing our business almost every day and operate in an environment that we see as having a pandemic that has been announced already. So in that way, we can be able to keep ourselves abreast of any risk that can have a huge impact on how we operate as the business. And certainly, when it comes to the ATSEP, there will be a need for a new crop of the expertise, and the ATSEP should take it upon themselves to seek the opportunities to capacitate themselves. And that will definitely require the support of the businesses. When it comes to the licensing framework, I think on that one, Frank, certainly, in fact, when you look at the future of competency-based training, it might require a complete overhaul. I know someone might be saying, but we are only starting now to embrace the competency-based training. I agree. However, when you look at the competency-based training, is too instructor-centric, and it relies on being physically present in one place, especially when it comes to the unity training that involves the equipment maintenance. So now the question is, the emergence of visual training and the prevalence of e-learning will still be able to achieve the competency-based training in its current form? I don't know. But then ATSEP will have to upskill themselves and develop the strategies of working from home or remotely, as I see this as part of the new normal. And one might say this may lead to fewer ATSEP being retained or being in employment, but I say not necessarily. I might hold a different view that it will actually require the concerted efforts to widen our scope of responsibility as ATSEP. Let's make it utterly impossible for an ANSP to operate efficiently without our presence or the contribution as the ATSEP. I think where I'm seated, I see visual and augmented reality as the new training methodology, which will require the OEMs possibly then to be on board. As an ATO, I might not necessarily need a new VOR installed at the ATO for training. Rather, provide me with a simulated environment that is close to the reality. That will also enable me to acquire the new skill set without having to leave my country or even to leave the comfort of my home. So for me, the ATSEP will have to be at the forefront in terms of driving their future and what training methodology will upskill them or capacitate them to be able to continue to remain relevant and continue to provide the safety critical services to the ATM environment. Thank you, Ifeanyi.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sam. From what you just said, it's all about innovation. Basically, all about innovation. And from your position, we're going to also have cost cutting in terms of being able to, move away from the regular traditional training methodology to online e-learning, of course, AR and VR coming into the equation and all that. So it makes it much more trainer friendly than what is obtained today. So I'd like to thank you for that, basically for that insight. While we are in this conversation, one of the officers of IFATSEA also joined us on this conversation. He's actually my friend and my brother from Greece. Christos is here. We're gonna give you an opportunity to talk to us when the time comes. So Theo, you're welcome to this webinar as well. All right, great. So I'm going to go to Ishaya now, and I'm going to ask a question with regards to drones, UAVs. I mean, COVID-19 has brought about the increases of UAVs for emergency operations. Ghana is an example. Ghana was actually using UAVs to transmit samples for testing. Rwanda also is an example as well. So post-COVID-19, do you envisage higher utilization levels of drones within our various airspaces? Are we prepared for unmanned traffic management system, UTM? And what will be the role of ATSEPs in this safety service area? Now, so looking at UAVs, we're looking at how we can be able to manage UAVs. So UTM and UAVs. Mr. Shaya, what's your take on this?
Thank you, Frank. My take on this is that we rely heavily on regulations from the ICAO to be able to implement a lot of things in the aviation sector because of the safety criticality nature of our operations. In this instance also, we would also require a lead by ICAO on the steps to be taken at every point in time to fine-tune the use of these unmanned aerial vehicles in the airspace. The example you have given in the case of Ghana and Rwanda are very credible examples that can actually be implemented in my nation and other nations as well, because they are basically artificial intelligence systems that are being utilized to do the testing of the COVID-19, as the case is. So they will help actually in keeping health personnel safer while they treat the cases of the COVID within the aviation sector, considering the fact that the sector is a public sector where we transport humans, transport cargo as well. So human activity is very high. So humans who are vessels of transmission of this disease must be constantly tested. And in the course of doing so, we have seen instances, or we have heard of instances where the frontline health workers have actually contracted this disease in the course of carrying out their jobs. So this cannot be taken for granted at all. So I think it is a normal that must be embraced going forward for the benefit of the sector. Thank you.
I'm going to do a follow-up question to you on this. Now,
Okay.
if we start having an increase in drone operations in our airspaces, do you consider this as a revenue line for the NSPs? Will this be a new revenue line for NSPs if we have an increased drone operations in our airspaces?
Yes, if there is an increase, which will mean the application of air traffic services, because separation comes into place, and it is the ATCOs that have to give the separation between these drones. Definitely, operators of these drones will have to now depend on our services, and of course, they have to pay for these services. And of course, it will it will be of benefit to the air navigation service provider in terms of revenue generation. That is the way I see it.
Okay. I mean, does any of the panelists have something to contribute to this? You have something to talk about on this so that we could just move on the issue of revenue with drones? Okay, great. So let me go back to the IFATSEA Director for Africa, Mr. Frank. Now, subscription-based services or pay-as-you-use has been available within the airline space over the years. However, it's gradually taking a foothold within the airline space environment with such services as space-based ADSB, for example, UTM, unmanned traffic management, amongst others. Do you foresee a situation where we have services such as navigation as a service, surveillance as a service, with space-based ADSB, communication as a service, etc.? And what will be the role of ATSEPs in these transitions? Mr. Frank.
Thank you very much. And permit me to welcome Theo. Theo, thank you for joining us. We are grateful. You know, this question is, let me say, partly it's already been implemented somehow in Europe. Let me say this, because there are organizations, of course, it's only one organization that I know, which I can speak of, that is into the provision of navigation services only. And that is the European Satellite Service Provider. So they are into navigation services only. So if you ask me whether I foresee anything of this coming into the future, we cannot predict what will happen in the future, but I can say that anything is possible, because currently I am aware that there is what we call the RS communication, that I know that there are some other organizations that are working seriously at it to ensure that they are able to also provide communication services as well. So clearly, if these things which are already ongoing in some other organizations for which they are yet to be adored are anything to think about, then clearly we may have a situation of this nature resulting. However, I do not know how this situation will arise in Africa, because in Europe, like I said, they have a common referee, the EASA, and so they certify a lot of these organizations which provides air navigation services as well. So the company I mentioned in Europe they refer to it as a pan-European organization, which I think falls under what they refer to as a third party or something of that sort. But in Africa, we are existing in individual countries, and the regulations that are employed by the CAA, which are applicable for the ANSPs to comply, are almost same regulations all over, because the basic source is simply, or let's say the basic regulation is the ICAO regulation. For us to have companies that will provide services in communication, a lot ought to go on, or services in navigation and surveillance, because you will not only be talking about just the services, but you will also be dealing with the security aspect as well. And that is crucial and important. Which airspace would such services be rendered? That is the first question we need to answer. And who would permit such organizations to provide into the airspaces of, let's say, Ghana or South Africa or Nigeria or Uganda? It's a question that probably going into the future, we may have to avert our minds to and see how we can be prepared to deal with situations of this nature when we are confronted with. But for me, I do not see anything wrong if there are organizations that cease to provide surveillance services. As you put it, we already have ADSB, ADSC, but of course that are implemented by ANSPs within the continent. So that is fine. We also have satellite-based ADSP, for which I do know that South Africa already has. I don't know whether it is in full operation now. The last time I saw it was under test or something of that sort. So, and South Africa did not contract some other organization to provide our services for them, of course. They own the equipment, but of course, we understand that the satellite services are provided by a satellite provider. That we cannot deal away with because for instance, if you look at Europe, the kind of satellite services which are provided for navigation purposes are services that are already provided by a satellite provider. And Africa here is a bit difficult unless probably we are able to get into that kind of system that we have in Europe. I do know that ASECNA is also pushing for that kind of services to be provided in Africa, but I'm not sure that they have received the kind of support that they require in order that they will be able to implement that, because it would require the collective understanding of a lot of the ANSPs or the industry players in order that we, ASECNA, would be able to go ahead and have that service delivered for us. So in my view, it would come, but in Africa, it may not come now. It will take a lot of time going into the future, but anything is possible in our industry. If we can't be taken unawares by COVID-19, then clearly anything is possible as far as the industry is concerned. And mind you, a lot of innovations are being introduced into the industry, and a lot of their ongoing research that is currently being done. And who knows what may come out and what Africa may want to also adopt. But it's important that for Africans, we are able to have one agreement that would collectively help us to be able to push forward what we think is required in Africa. Because, for example, in the United States of America is very huge. So they have the FAA. Europe, of course, they have the EASA. They also have the European Commission that sits, enacts laws and all that, but which are applicable in the aviation industry as well. But in Africa, we are depending on the ICAO regulations, which is good. I'm not saying that Europe is doing something different from the ICAO regulations. No, it's the same regulations. That's the basic regulation they use. But they have managed to create what they call implementing rules, implementing regulations and stuff like that, which eventually binds every aviation organization in the interest of what? Safety. So for us, I think that at the AU level, I have been looking at the situation if the AU could delve a little bit more into the aviation sector to see how best they could create that kind of homogeneity among the African aviation industries in order that we would be able on our own set our own pace in the interest of safety for the continent as well. So yes, we have the space-based ADSB. Iris is also on the way coming. Already, yes, we have the cellular navigation in terms of the G-bars, S-bars. Of course, we don't have many countries implementing G-bars. I don't think we can count 3 or 4 NSPs or countries that have implemented G-bars. But I do know that the S-bars is all over Europe as well. And in America, you have the S-bars. Japan has got it. I think South Korea is also developing, and there are other countries as well, China already. And so for us, what are we doing in Africa? So clearly, these provisions, yes, they will come, but how are we going to dispose ourselves to take advantage of such services? That remains the key question for all of us to answer going into the future. But I don't see anything wrong with other services being provided to support the aviation industry, so long as safety and security is not compromised in this instance. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you, Frank. One of the key things you mentioned here basically is the fact that Africa needs to come together. There has to be more collaboration, more synergy amongst African NSPs.
Sure.
To actually to take advantage of economies of scale, wholesome procurement of services and all of that. Because again, if you look at ASECNA you mentioned, ASECNA is about 18 countries in Africa. And they basically have uniform kind of operations, you know, the way they operate and all that. 18 different countries within a ASECNA group, a ASECNA block. Now, for the space-based ADSB, ASECNA actually procured it as a single entity, not as different countries. So again, for them it's cheaper, cost-effective and all that for them to do that. So for Africa, we can actually go towards that direction. And for space-based ADSB, Africa can actually procure that as an entity. And it's a lot cheaper and more cost-effective for Africa to go into that direction, rather than each country procuring that service on their own. The same thing with other services that can be delivered based on subscription basis. So that's, for me, that's very critical. I just want to quickly ask Sam, you've implemented space.
Hold on, please.
Yes,
you know that a lot, in terms of space-based ADSB, yes, that is good, fine, but a lot of the African NSPs, and I think even across the world as well, a lot of the NSPs have developed the wait-and-see attitude. How it's going to be, because people are not that so sure of the kind of services that they are going to get from the space-based ADSB. Of course, that is excellent. If you have seen it, I've seen it in South Africa, which is very excellent. I mean, you see the data flow and everything. That is good. But it will take a lot more time and if we have to do that, then it means that we have to wage a lot of campaign in that direction. But that would mean that we are doing the work of the manufacturer or the provider as well. So yes, like you said, if we're able to come together and create synergy, then we can be able to have a reduced cost or something of that sort. But it is not going to be easy for a lot of the ANSPs as well. It's not going to be easy, and there's a lot of ongoing discussions and all that. For example, I know that Ghana, we had wanted to go in for it, but if you look at the cost involved, it was quite huge. The cost was quite huge, and there are a lot of things that we needed to implement as well. Of course, there is one thing that we need not forget in implementing such satellite systems. They are very good, but in terms of coverage, you also need some ground-based systems to be able to do that, and that is important. And if people would have to implement some other infrastructures, like you need to create some other satellite platforms to be able to take advantage of this system. That it provides some kind of cost situations for the ANSPs. That, I believe, is a problem why most ANSPs have developed some kind of resistance towards acquisition and implementation of such systems like space-based ADSB. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So there's a cost factor associated with the issue you're talking about. I just want to quickly ask Sam, you guys have deployed space-based ADSB in South Africa. In terms of value and benefits, can you just give us just a little bit of cost-benefit analysis of that deployment in terms of the surveillance system and the space-based ADSB system?
Yeah, thank you very much, Frank. May I humbly request that maybe I don't elaborate on that because I don't necessarily have the mandate and to speak on behalf of the ANSPs in terms of how they have introduced the space-based ADSB. I think with your permission, but I think to Frank's point, I think when we go for all these technologies, when you look at space-based ADSB, I think as long as we've got a broader vision as to what's in it for the continent and how we're going to reap the benefit, I think going forward, if that's going to be the future, I think we need to gear ourselves and we don't find ourselves in a situation where we are always lagging behind and we have to play a catch-up program all the time. But with due respect, yes, I would rather maybe not elaborate further on the space-based ADSB test that has been happening in South Africa.
There's just one information I just want us to get. You know that we have the ADSB and solar-based ADSB.
Yeah, ground-based and solar-based.
Yes, the ground-based, yes. There is something intriguing that we need to avert our minds to. You know, this year, January 2020, the FAA, per its own standards and regulations, decided that commercial flights should have ADSB. And they will all have to fly the ground-based ADSB. Europe also has done the same. Why is there no mention of space-based ADSB? I mean, let's think through it. It is good, but it looks like the regulators, even though ICAO approved it, all right, in terms of tracking of aircrafts, that would help greatly. But I'm wondering why, when they made the regulations in the US and the Europe, the mention was not made of the space-based ADSB, but concentrated on the ground-based ADSB. I'm sure Costas is around. I'm sure with time he may have to help us.
Okay, we'll get to them later on so that they can add their own knowledge and experience to these discussions that we're having. I just want to address all the participants. Please, there's a Q&A tab. If you have questions, just drop it in that Q&A tab. The panelists will address your questions as we go on. We're going to have a time to do Q&A for the participants as well. So please, if you have any question now, all the participants, just drop it in the Q&A tab. We're going to take your questions as time goes on, basically. At this juncture, I'd like to bring in Costas. That's the Europe Director for IFATSEA. Just to throw in a little bit more of light on the issue of, we're discussing with satellite technologies now, just throw in a little bit of light on this so that just in about 2 minutes or so, just talk to us, Costas, on the issue of satellite technologies for aviation.
Hello to all. Frank speak a lot about Europe, and it seems he has a good knowledge of how things are moving in Europe. Just a short advice. We do a lot of mistakes in Europe. Don't follow all our mistakes. Follow the good stuff we produce there. So, because it's a complicated system, as I explained in our last IFATSEA assembly. The structure we have in Europe is indeed very complicated, both on the regulatory domain and also on the producing of all these and implement of all these new technologies. So coming to the point that you discussed before, yes, actually there is this trend, and as Frank said, these space technologies are getting a lot of ground in Europe, and as you know, there is one organization, the European Space Provider, who has been certified to give CNS services. Okay, this changed a lot our whole philosophy, and I consider this as one of the big challenge on the space. And in parallel, there is one big challenge, the threat for ATSEP profession on the ground with the creation of ATM data service providers. It's another concept of operation. So both these two, on the ground and on the space, they are a big challenge and also a threat, because the guys that are going to work for this space-based provider giving CNS services, it means that definitely will be ATSEP based, at least on the European regulations, okay? They have to be trained or whatever. So in a few years, we're going to have some more colleagues working for a different provider, and also for the space and on the ground for the ATM data service providers. So these two big challenges are now the latest, let's say, things we have to deal in Europe. And the last thing I want to add is that, okay, we implement a lot of solution, a lot of technological solutions that might be of a use in some countries, mostly the Central European countries. That's why I said before, don't follow all the news, all the solution or whatever. It might not be of any value to you in your case, because you don't have a dense airspace or whatever. So try, if you want to follow and take the best practices, how we created, let's say, and we're still trying to create the single European sky in order to suggest some good and valuable solution to your organization for the creation of a single African airspace. Try to follow the good practices which we have done in Europe, because not all one size fits all. I mean, all the solutions are not applicable in all the continents and in all states. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Costas. I'd like to also invite Boni to just speak a little bit about the issue of space-based ADSB because she's from CANSO, a body for NSPs globally. So I'd like for her to just speak to us quickly on that. Boni, please.
Thank you very much, Ifenya. Good morning, good afternoon to Africa. What I wanted to say was CANSO facilitated a group of ANSPs who had an intention of implementing ADSB. That's a few years ago. That was Mozambique, Zambia, Malawi, Tanzania. I think that's as far as I can remember. ATNS was not part of it, I remember. And the reason for that was some of those countries had already implemented ADSB. For instance, Mozambique was actually the initiator of the project. And what they wanted was for all other countries to link in and make sure that when they procure, they benefit from economy of scales, and also just to make sure that what they were implemented, that, you know I'm not a technical person, you remember I told you, what they wanted to make sure was the communication and the overlaps between the countries would be linked in such a way that they would be able to support each other across border. That was the main reason why Mozambique wanted to, and also obviously I did talk about economy of scale. There was a pushback from IATA because that's the approach we used. We invited IATA just for IATA to tell us exactly what they think airlines would want and how they would want ADSB to be implemented. There was a pushback from IATA, as I have already indicated, because the view from IATA was that airlines were not properly equipped. One, two, the equipment, in other words, ADSB would not benefit the airlines or the aircraft themselves. And because of that, and the group, in other words, the group that CANSO was facilitated, wanted to make sure that when they implement, it's a properly coordinated process, the implementation thereof. So I'm just, wanting to comment in relation to that the countries who have implemented, CANSO members specifically, those are the ones I'm aware of, had a pushback from IATA. They continued, and IATA was giving lots of reasons, like there's lots of underlying factors. You know that when you have ADSB, you also have to have ASMEX. And they said there's lots of underlying cost structures which you will not see when you implement ADSB at that particular time. However, members did continue to implement because we invited service providers to come and present, and a different organization. I remember it was Greenacres. It was I've forgotten the names of the companies who are implementers or developers of ADSB. We invited them just to come and present to us the pros and cons, and those who continued to procured, but it's not coordinated as a result of the fact that we couldn't get support from IATA. Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Boni. Thank you so much, Boni, for that insight that you brought in. I think going forward, there's still going to be a lot of conversations on space-based ADSB away from this webinar, because there's an interesting issue that is coming up amongst NSP globally. IATA is in the mix as well, because IATA again is going to look at costs to the airlines as well. So it's interesting conversation that will continue, well beyond this webinar. So I think we need to, keep the conversation going and look at the best way to have this implemented in our various environments, in Africa. The best mix is what we need to have, basically as different countries in Africa. So thank you for that, Boni. The issue of security for me is critical. And when Andrew was talking initially, he mentioned the issue of security as well. I'm going to direct this question to Khaled. Basically the aviation industry, including the NSPs, has increasingly employed information technology and digital systems to ensure efficiency and enhance productivity. This has led, in certain instances, the convergence of proprietary aviation systems and commercially off-the-shelf solutions. However, traditional aviation infrastructure was not built at the initial by a security by design framework, because aviation used to be a closed loop, closed environment, working in silos. Now aviation actually is open to actually increasingly becoming connected to the internet environment and all of that. So the increased reliance on convergent solutions, internet and digital technologies has exposed the inherent vulnerabilities in the end navigation infrastructure, bringing cybersecurity threats to the fore. With the new normal, which may amplify further the use of internet and digital technologies, how can the CNSATM infrastructure be secured and protected? Khaled, I'd like for you to just address this. How can we protect and secure air navigation infrastructure based on the new cybersecurity threats to aviation? Where's Khaled? I can't see you here. We lost him. Okay, I'm going to share the question again. Any of the panelists can decide to take that question, basically. I'm going to share the question again. I was saying that the aviation industry, including the NSPs, have increasingly employed information technology and digital systems to ensure efficiency and enhance productivity. This has led in certain instances the convergence of proprietary aviation systems and commercially off-the-shelf solutions. However, traditional aviation infrastructure was not built ab initio by a security by design framework, which basically means that aviation used to be a closed environment, but aviation is being opened up gradually to connecting to internet service and all of that. So the increased reliance on conventional solutions, internet and digital technologies have exposed the inherent vulnerabilities in the aviation infrastructure, bringing cybersecurity threats to the fore. With the new normal, which may amplify further the use of internet and digital technologies, how can the CNSATM infrastructure be secured and protected going forward? I'd like one of the panelists to take this question.
I think going forward, IFATSEA has already taken a step forward, because during the last ICAO 40th General Assembly in Montreal, ICAO made a presentation to the Assembly for the inclusion of cyber security in our competency-based training, which the Assembly approved for cyber security to be entrenched in the document 10057, which is basically on the competency training and skills for the ATSEPs. So going forward, respective states now have to take a cue from there and begin to look at ways of implementing the cybersecurity training for ATSEPs. It becomes critical for the ATSEPs because, like Costas mentioned earlier on, the ATSEP job is becoming threatened, especially like in Europe, from the stories we have heard from our counterparts in Europe and even America. Of course, we know that whatever happens to them as time goes on will definitely catch up with us in Africa. So I, for one, here in Nigeria, have actually begun to put this forward to our ANSP so that we can begin to fashion out ways and get ready when IFATSEA has fully developed the training on the cybersecurity, so that without delay, we have to begin to implement so that ATSEPs can be fully equipped with this essential skill in overcoming the cyber threats that come with this new digital infrastructure, which are very complex, of course, and very expensive. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So there's already a plan to begin to train ATSEPs when it comes to cybersecurity protection and mitigation going forward. I mean, that's a welcome development for ATSEP.
Can I add something, Frank?
Costa, Yeah, Costa, I wanted to add something on this. Costa.
Yes, thank you, Frank. Just to add to what Ishaya was said, in Europe, for example, after a lot of fight, let's say, with the EASA, the European Aviation Safety Agency, where all the regulation are starting and developing, in the 373, which is a new, as Frank said before, implementing rules that cover our training. It's now ATCOS and ATSEP in Europe are the two ATM professions that regulated with these laws. So all the others profession, they don't have any strict regulation like ATCOS and ATSEP. So in this regulation, when we were working with EASA to develop the acceptable means of compliance on these implementing rules, you see in Europe there is a structure of setting up the domains, the rules about the CNS provision, what domains have to fulfill with the training to acquire the competence and so on. But these training objectives, they analyze in another manual, which is called acceptable means of compliance. In order to fulfill this training objective, it has to follow as an explanation the acceptable means of compliance. It's something which helps the ANSPs to develop their trainings and fully understand what is the training objectives that the ATSEP has to fulfill. So we gave a fight there on cybersecurity for ATSEP because a few years ago, and it's Theo who can tell you the whole story, and he was involved from many years in these domains for cybersecurity. We were having a fight because everybody was saying that no, the cybersecurity is not belong to the ATSEP. It's something that the ITs has to perform. But we managed to establish this as an ATSEP property, let's say, and we managed to persuade all the other stakeholders, and we have some objections for several institutions. And now we are building at EASA a completely new domain, which is not now in 373, will be included in the first revision, which called ATSEP cybersecurity, which means it's a new domain for training for the ATSEP. This can be as an example to all the states, and we are covered by the regulation that the cybersecurity in our premises, and if you read the 373, is talking about that ATSEP is responsible to operate, put to operation the system of the equipment of the functional system. So along this perimeter that covers our equipment, our system, we are responsible to provide and maintain the cybersecurity. We are not responsible for the whole infrastructure of our country. I mean, if we rely on the telecoms to perform our job, we are not responsible for all the incomings and so on. We are only responsible for the systems, the functional system along this perimeter that CNS ATM we provide. So this was a fight we gave, and we succeeded there. So with this example, in a couple of years, we're going to have a new syllabus, a new manual for ATSEP cybersecurity training. Thank you very much. Maybe Theo wants to add some more on our history on cybersecurity.
Sorry, I didn't get that.
Maybe Theo Kiritsis want to add some more on this thing.
Okay, Theo, please go ahead, Theo.
Yes, good afternoon to everybody. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Nice, very nice. Congratulations for this webinar. This is the way to go forward. Bravo to Africa.
Thank you.
And all the contributors. I have joined a little bit late in the discussion, so allow me to add a couple of sentences to introduce my thinking, my way of thought. I heard you talking about COVID and the ATSEP profession and whatever is going to happen after that. I would very much like to know at some point what is the cost recovery mechanism that you use in Africa to get paid for the services that you provide, because the ATSEP are not related to the level of traffic. We have to provide 100% all functionalities at all times, irrespective of the traffic. So making economies through more efficiency, for me, is okay, but cutting, because we have to cut costs, okay, I don't agree. Taking it a bit further, with regard to satellites and services from the satellite, I can bring you some new data from Europe, including controller pilot data link. I'll give you an indicator. There were 3,600 losses of service from satellites declared by pilots last year. So the efficiency of the satellite service is not by nature so high so as to be trusted as a sole means of navigation or communication. Keep that in mind as well. The thing about surveillance as a service and communication as a service, before anybody embarks on splitting up and moving into such a fragmentation of services, there has to be a cost-benefit analysis for the next 10 years, okay? Because in Europe, as Costas might have told you, I didn't hear that, they're thinking of building data service providers where all the radar data will be collected, and flight data processing and even radar data processing will be done on a single system for many countries. Why is that? That is because they want to bring the cost of equipment down, and if you like, the cost of ATSEP, okay? Or sort of higher rent equipment that was mentioned earlier on data centers where technicians will look after the IT that will carry our applications, and ATSEP will be somewhere, somehow, okay? These are the trends that we're talking about. Looking in the European data from the cost of the ANSPs to the ticket, which is 6% of the total cost of the airline ticket, the data 3 years back, 70% of that ANSP cost is salaries. And salaries is salary, the main salary, the basic salary plus overtime. We're going to be huge changes. There are going to be huge changes as we speak now after the COVID crisis, because overtime is not needed anymore because there are no flights, or there were no flights. I hope they come back, okay? But remember, 70% more or less of the cost of the ANSP cost on the airline ticket comes from salaries. Now, all the rest, including equipment, is in the 30%. So whatever changes or cost cuttings you think of embarking upon, you should see it in the total context, okay? The last one, I don't want to take up your time, is cybersecurity. People talk about security and cybersecurity, but we don't share the same understanding. In 2012, we submitted a paper to Cesar telling them that you have produced so many good things, so many applications, you know, so many Cesar solutions, but who is going to supervise them? How are we going to get control of them? Because having an application doing something, an arrival manager, is okay, but the ATSEP has to oversee it. Otherwise, we're in trouble. So where is the ATSEP working position that will be equipped with cybersecurity capabilities? What's this? Cybersecurity, not security only. Cybersecurity. okay, and they didn't accept our proposal. 3 years later, they come back to us and said, you said something, it was about 2015, about having cybersecurity. What was it about? And we told them the implicit. The ATSEP is overlooking the CNS and AATM systems as it is now. Every ATSEP has got one console per system. The status is somewhere depicted, but you can't do much controlling with the status. You have to have specialists. So you have to develop the ATSEP working position. So I'm giving you this message now because Costas can tell you about this at some other time, I think. In Europe, we developed the notion of the ATSEP working position. And the ATSEP working position will have that functionality with regard to cyber and to security issues, because cyber usually is talked about in the framework of IT systems being interconnected and hacker coming in. We don't have only these threats, guys. We have also signal in space. So an attacker who will attack an airport will jam the GNSS or the satellite system. He will try or she will try to break into the systems and create a coordinated out-of-the-box attack. So the ATSEP should be able and equipped with the right tools for the future to identify where the threat is and what is he's facing in the desk in front of him, whether it is a malfunction of the system or is it security breach. And in closing, what I have to say is this: we managed to get, that is Costas and the European team, managed to have the ATSEP work position defined, managed to have EASA accept that ATSEP will be responsible for all the functionalities in copper wire, optical fiber, but also in the signaling space under the ATSEP context. If you have an attack and you have to find what the virus is or what the attacker, there will be another center that can help you on that. But the responsibility lies with the ATSEP. And I'll tell you something historical which might have been forgotten. In 2016, if you go into ICAO, you will see, in our website, you will see what that we provided the concept of the ATSEP working position equipped with a functionality and the impact for the whole system in terms of efficiency, cost, etc., etc. That paper was noted. Nothing happened after that. Now, 2 years ago, 1.5 years ago, we came back with another paper, but now the atmosphere was different and it was accepted. It's up to you guys, up to us to follow it up and bring about awareness of what we're doing and share a common understanding of all the concepts that I just mentioned, including security and cybersecurity. Thank you very much for your patience.
All right, thank you so much, Theo, for that very valuable information. I think we're going to take that information, and the IFATSEA Director for Africa is going to actually be able to set up a team that's going to look at all of these issues and see how we can push it within the African NSP so that we can begin to have this implemented in Africa. We appreciate that information that you just provided for us. We're just going to take a few questions from the audience. A couple of questions have been asked, a lot of questions. I'm just going to try and ask some of them so that we can just take it as quickly as we can. Chike Okarafo is asking, what will be the trend in percentage for the ATSEP in terms of remote monitoring and maintenance of critical and application infrastructure post-COVID? Sam, can you take that? What will be the trend in percentage for the ATSEP in terms of remote monitoring and maintenance of critical and application infrastructure post-COVID?
Thank you very much, Frank. I think the trend, when you look at it post-COVID, the remote maintenance is going to be the new order of the day. We're looking at that as the new norm. And obviously, with the ATSEP being equipped with the necessary technologies and all that. As it is, actually, as it stands now, they should be able to maintain some of the systems remotely, and I don't see us changing that anytime soon. And actually, that should be the norm that we should be adopting as an industry, obviously taking into cognizance of the issues that have been raised by Costas and Theo in terms of the security and all that. I think it's pertinent in all that on what we're gonna do going forward. And we all know, I think it's been discussed earlier by one of our panelists, that the aviation industry has always been labeled as being highly regulated. And these regulations, they appear to hamper the deployment of some of the emerging technologies. I may not necessarily attest to that view, but I think we are at a point where the industry needs to move with the rest of the other industry, be it in terms of the acquisition of the latest technology. So if we've got technologies out there that can assist us in maintaining all these systems, I think that should be the new normal. I take note of all the areas that might be of a concern to the role players within the aviation sector. But we need to take this one head on, because we just cannot afford to be lagging behind, being it on the implementation of the technology that will ease us, which will ease our operation and ensure that we continue to remain relevant. Because the more we keep on holding to what we know best, then we will soon become irrelevant. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm just going to do a quick follow-up question on that, and I'm going to ask this question to Andrew. This question is from Fortunate to Mwesige. It says, the aviation industry, especially in Africa, is falling behind as far as the fourth industrial revolution is concerned, the fourth IR. Much as the issue of safety and standards is pertinent, how can we nurture innovations that can usher in the fourth industrial revolution technologies in our ecosystems, such as blockchain, big data, artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, and all of that? How can we nurture innovation in this space for African aviation?
Okay, thank you so much, Frank. And I think in line with what Sam has been mentioning, we cannot afford to lag behind technology, because technology is here to help us. And the fourth industry actually is here, and we have issues. We have big data, we have AI, we have blockchain. So this revolution is coming with a lot of additions that can actually enhancements that can help us in our duty. For example, we know that AIM is actually moving towards SWIM, and actually SWIM is big data, it's Internet of Things. So I think we need to keep an open mind as ATSEPs, and I know the industry will move us. If we are not moving, the industry will force us to move, because very soon you'll find manufacturers, making equipment that is, in line with the new technology, and you cannot lag behind because you won't have support for that equipment. The equipment maybe will be obsolete and even not be, not maybe being supported or manufactured. So I think instead of dragging our feet, we need to, to look for mechanisms in which we can embrace technology, also work together with our, our regional ICAO blocks and even ICAO, IFATSEA, so that we push ICAO into, into opening up to technology, because technology is here to help us, and it will help us if we embrace it. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Andrew, for that response. I'm going to take one more question, then I'll go to the party presidents. I'll take one more question, I'll go to the party president. The question is from Mustafa Alden. He said, I would like to ask about what are the measures taken by respective NSP for preventive maintenance, flight inspection, periodicity, and also ATSEP training and assessment. Ishaya, can you just please address that for us? Let me ask the question again. I would like to ask about what are the measures taken by respective NSPs for preventive maintenance, flight inspection, periodicity, and also ATSEP training and assessment.
Okay, I will start with the flight inspection. For my own ANSP, it is as though they foresaw the COVID pandemic coming up, because recently our country procured the flight calibration aircraft, which was put to use recently. That was between November, December 2019. And that has kept our ANSP ready for periodic flight inspections as at when needed. So that is virtually like settled for my ANSP. Then also, the ANSP has been able to also abide by protocols that have been designed to protect not only ATSEPs, but everyone in the work environment by ensuring that the basic hygiene components are provided, temperature testing while accessing the work environment has been put in place. Face masks have been also provided to also protect the staff. Then, of course, moving forward, we have also brought it to the attention of the ANSP to ensure that we keep abreast with whatever technologies that will emerge to make the ATSEP job easier and safer as we also look at working remotely within this period of time. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that response. I want to quickly go to the president of IFATSEA. Before he gives an update on ICAO document 10057, I want to put this question to him. The question is actually from Rashid Zoge. Said, in addition to the questions above, how does the panel foresee the future of ATSEP job security, post-COVID-19, with new technology that might be employed in the aviation industry? So I'd like the president to take this, then go over to the ICAO document 10057. Mr. President, sir.
Yes, first, please let me say thank you very much for the invitation to be here with you as an observer, and congratulations to the organizers of this webinar. I think this is the first thing we do like this on IFATSEA regional level in Africa, and I'm very sure we will use this instrument and also in autumn in replacing the 50th IFATSEA Assembly to continue the discussion. ATSEP job security, what my view on this is, as we said already, the changes, satellite-based navigation services, so PBN is a keyword, cybersecurity. So I see ATSEP are doing a safe job also in the future, but we will see changes in the jobs. My view is we will see maybe a little bit less of ATSEP globally due to reducing terrestrial navigation systems, if we implement more cloud solutions and so on, but we will need more higher qualified ATSEP. So this is a little bit my outlook on the future of ATSEP job security. But in general, I'm not in fear that we see now a mass of unemployment or fired ATSEP, because this was already said in the discussion here, which is very well. I see no big difference of the workload of ATSEP globally, because we do not care if there are 3 aircrafts in the sector in an ACC for an air traffic controller, or there are 40 aircrafts in the sector. The technical equipment must be safe, and our profession, we release all the systems in CNS and ATM for operational use for the pilots and for the air traffic controllers. And this is the key. I think we implemented in the last 20 years in ICAO with the specific ICAO ATSEP training manual, the DOC 10057. So I come to my comment on this, what we all discussed here on cybersecurity. So if you see there is a circulating second edition of the DOC 10057, but it's an unedited version. This was also an intervention by IFATSEA, and our ICAO liaison officer, Mr. Patrick Delaney, is in close coordination with the ICAO stakeholders to implement training objectives as we agreed and as we forwarded in our working paper in the last ICAO assembly to implement the training objectives for cybersecurity in the DOC 10057. So this work was immediately starting after the ICAO assembly last year. Due to the COVID-19 crisis, we have a little bit of break there, but IFATSEA is continuously in cooperation and in discussion with ICAO to implement this very important future training objectives for ATSEP. Mr. Chairman, I wanted to make some general addresses. Do you give me the place now, or should I do it later?
You can do it later, Mr. President, but I have a question for you, which somebody asked, which I think we need to address.
Go ahead.
The question says, it's also on cybersecurity. It says, with the ongoing emerging cybersecurity threats, is it safe to say that IT professionals in the cybersecurity sector can join the ATSEP without difficulty? Or is it cast in stone? The only way to go is for ATSEPs to be trained in cybersecurity? That's the question somebody asked.
In general, if I understood the question now correctly, it would be more highly, if we see moves now for cloud-based solutions of IT services, also addressed by Theo. I mean, it's not proven yet that it's work, but we all know from the scientifics, if you do more de-regional systems, designs, you get more in the risk of getting cybersecurity threats. And there for me is the most important thing for ATSEP in the future will be if we are working on such systems which are cloud-based or something like this, we need a highly situational awareness. And this is, I think, the main scope for the training objectives for ATSEP in the future. Oh, it's not a transistor or a software program which is making trouble to my system I'm responsible for. Could it maybe an attack from an outside? And this will be, I think, the main important thing in the future, and specific for our colleagues who are working in system monitoring and control, to every time have in mind there could be also a threat coming from outside. Because, I mean, today we have very closed systems in ANSPs, which are usually very safe, and to the outside also we are interacting on internet with systems, but this will become more a threat in aviation generally, I think. And this is also calling IFATSEA to have a close coordination with ICAO, with CANSO, and with industry, how we design future CNS ATM systems.
So is it okay for NSPs to basically employ IT professionals who are cybersecurity experts as ATSEP?
We have this already in German ANSP, DFS. We have a small group of cybersecurity experts, and they are ATSEP. And this is for sure what we need as IFATSEA to fight globally for, that everything which has to do with cybersecurity, with IT services, whatever, the responsibility has to be rely on the shoulder of an ATSEP, because finally we are responsible to release, as I said, systems for operational use.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to call you back later on, President, but I'd like to ask Cristina to just give us 2 minutes remarks. Cristina, please, Secretary Secretary.
First of all, good morning to everybody. I want to congratulate the organizers for this opportune initiative and also the invited speakers. Definitely, we are facing unprecedented times and therefore very challenging ones. Our reality, as most of the speakers stressed, is that for our profession and duties is not significant if there is a large traffic volume or just one airplane flying. Safety is paramount for us, and our CNS ATM systems must be fully operational and serviceable, not to compromise the safety levels of all airspace. I found the themes of our discussion very wide, broad, focused, and very pertinent. And I recall right from the beginning that Sam refers the importance of training and the need to accommodate it during these times. Also, Andrew referred the opportunity for new technologies implementation and learning opportunities associated with that we can explore. More recently, he said we should keep our mind open to these new technologies and the AI. Our director, regional director Africa, Frank, highlighted the effort you are doing to fully comply with the regulations, and he has a very good image of the European scene. So we tackled a lot of very important issues. On the other level, for sure, this pandemic times leveraged the opportunity for remote technologies, and we will surely be further increasingly exploring and developing those remote technologies. We talk about so many important subjects that it was really a pleasure to attend this webinar. I thank you for the invitation. Once again, I congratulate for the initiative. This is another example for other regions to follow. Thank you, and regards to every participant, and stay safe from COVID-19.
Thank you very much, Cristina. We appreciate your intervention. Thank you very much for even being here with us. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
I'm just going to go quickly to the panel. Theo, we're not seeing you actually. Theo, can you put on your video? Theo, can you?
Not very good.
Okay.
Here, I will be very quick. Please note that with regard to the flight inspection,
yes,
if you go to ICAO has got a special page for COVID-19, and in there is advice to states with regard to flight inspection, and it gives advice in case ILSs and VORDMEs overpass their validity date. And in there, you will see that they say, do your best to extend the period, taking into account safety. So my first message is, go on the COVID. If you want, I can share it to you, but you can find it very easily. It's a state letter, very good information for everybody, and use it. The second thing is, you know that ICAO has removed CNS from being mandated to have a safety management system as it was in the past in Annex 17, ICAO Annex 17. Now that they're facing reality, and we have to keep that, they come back and they say that for NAVAIDS, you have to do safety assessment. Okay, you see the contradiction. Just think about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Theo, for that intervention. I'm just going to address to my panelists right away. Before I even get to that, please, all of the participants, this webinar is recorded, and you're going to get access to the recording so that you can also go back and review all of the discussion that we had today. So you're going to get a copy of the recording, basically. You know, all the questions that was asked that was actually answered. Also, you're going to get all of that as well in the Q&A as well, so that you have that information with you going forward as well. I'm just going to ask my panelists the final word. 2 minutes, just 2 minutes. So that we need to try and run. 2 minutes. I'm going to start with Ishaya. The final words. 2 minutes.
Thank you. I want to commend the Africa Director and Frank Ugochukwu for hosting of this webinar. It is actually my first webinar, thanks to COVID-19. I wish to use this opportunity to express my gratitude and say kudos to all ATSEPs for risking their lives during this pandemic to render service under difficult conditions in order to keep the airspace open and safe to support the frontline health workers in the ongoing fight against COVID-19. Finally, I charge us all to continue to take responsibility by adhering strictly to the safety and health protective measures or rules that are in place. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ishaya, for that. I quickly go to Sam. Sam, your 2 minutes, final word.
Thank you very much, Frank. It's been an exciting opportunity, I think, for us to engage on this platform. I think as my parting shot, and I think the participants and the panelists, they will have to bear with me. I'm not trying to be an alarmist, but when I look at the reality that is sitting with us now, we can actually see that some of the services that we offer, let me use maybe area control, it can be achieved anywhere in the world. An ATC sitting in Dakar, Lusaka, or Tunis can actually provide the service in a South African airspace, given the appropriate technology. So therefore, I go back to my point that it is imperative for the ATSEP to become central figures to bring in efficiencies and the necessary expertise to the job. If the South African airspace can be controlled from Dakar, what will stop an ATSEP from Entebbe to maintain an ATM system in Johannesburg? I'm not saying the future of ATSEP is in jeopardy, but all I'm saying is that the future of this profession lies entirely in our hands and how we respond to these challenges that are facing us. It's been a great opportunity. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Sam, for that. Let me quickly go to Andrew. Andrew, give us your final 2 minutes last words.
Okay, thank you so much, Frank. Firstly, I wish to thank the IFATSEA Africa Regional Director for coordinating this webinar, and to you, Frank, for being willing to be the instrument he used to be able to mobilize us in Africa. It's really very commendable. This is the new normal, and maybe no one anticipated this, but look, all of us are on Zoom. We can even start having our Africa regional meetings, maybe on Zoom or things like that. So the new normal is here. It has dawned on us, and I want to urge all of us to look at these challenges from a position of opportunity and not from a position of despair. There is lots of opportunity that come with challenges, and post-COVID is here. I think it's going to open up numerous opportunities for ATSEPs to expand our horizons, to use technology to our advantage, and to further, to further drive the aviation industry forwards. So I want to encourage us to all go back and think outside the box. Post-COVID is on us, and we need to see how we can harness the opportunities that it is availing us to see that we can drive the frontiers of aviation to provide safe and efficient air transport to Africa and the whole of the world. So I thank you all. Thank you for listening to us. Thank you for joining us, the participants, and stay safe. We need you alive. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Andrew, for that. I'm going to just quickly call on Boni. 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Boni, 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Ifenya. Anyway, I do have another meeting immediately after this, so I have to. I just wanted to echo. I think most of the speakers have echoed what I would have loved to say as CANSO. It's that the pandemic is going to, or has catalyzed, yes, that's the word I wanted to use, catalyzed investment in technology. And it's definitely reshaping the aviation industry. So I'd really want to say, even before the pandemic, though, we could see the UAVs coming in, which were bringing in a difference in the provision of air navigation service providers. So the change has been there. All what we need from you guys is innovation. You need to be more innovative and be able to reinvent yourselves. The skills level is going to be completely different. I mean, the platform we are in at the moment should be the platform. I heard this talk about whether it's an IT area or your area. In my view, that is how you need to start thinking. Training. Now, in terms of CANSO, you remember the last time when we were in Ghana, I did say CANSO is definitely going to be supporting IFATSEA. I have an offer to make. We have what we call an operations work group in Africa. It looks at all the operational issues of ANSPs. Within it, we have the technical component. I have already requested my office to invite Sam, because Sam is around, is in South Africa. But I would also like to request the regional director to identify somebody whom we can include in our operations work group. We have a meeting, I think, coming next week, which is going to be specifically talking about technology, in after COVID. We'd like to invite you, and we that's the support we can offer. Otherwise, just innovation, innovation, innovation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Boni. Thanks all from CANSO. I'd like to take Costas. 2 minutes, please. Costas, 2 minutes.
So, Frank, thank you very, very much for giving me the opportunities to elaborate a little on the European issues. I know it will take us a lot of hours to explain you the whole situation. I try to be, giving the main points of this. What I didn't mention, and this is something, an initiative we have done in Europe, at least, since with the COVID situation, we have some difficulties in some ANSPs, and they threaten to take measures against ATM, ANS personnel, ATCOS, ATSEP, AIM, etc. For example, there was a case in Sweden where they threatened to fire 500 people there. So I had to intervene along with the other PSOs, IFATCA, the unions, ETF, ATCUC in Europe, and we sent a support letter to the Minister of Transport in Sweden, and now Poland is also requesting a similar approach. So in Europe, at least, the hit of COVID was a little hard, especially on the ANSPs. But in our approach, we urge all the institutions in Europe, the European Commission, EASA, Eurocontrol, CANSO as well, and all the European states and ANSPs to realize the importance of our profession and the air navigational services, okay? And how critical is this infrastructure to be maintained. The need to have this qualified personnel in place after COVID situation, and how essential is to have this personnel ready in a hot standby mode to catch up immediately after this pandemic goes away. And also, we ask from the regulators to give their attention and allow the ANSP to create a safety net, an economic pillow that will use in situations like that, because COVID show us some evidence, and we have to take this meaning, what meant for our business, and take all the precautions next time we have a similar approach to be ready. This is the essence of we have, for us is a lesson learned. So we have to be prepared for the next possible crisis. Thank you very much, and you've done a wonderful work. And this is a IFATSEA we all want to see and have this fruitful discussion. Thank you all the panelists, and you, Frank. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Costas. Before I call on my Director of Africa, I'd like to call on the party president to give his general statements. Mr. President, sir.
Thank you very much, Frank. Yes, I can also only add a wonderful webinar here. Thank you very much, Frank, for organizing, and all the panelists for a very interesting discussion. My wife is continuously asking me, "You still in this webinar?" Yes, I like to follow. And good to be with you. Some general statements. So for me, first highest priority is health in this pandemic COVID-19 situation globally, and look for adjusted working conditions, as we said, physical distance, wearing a mouth mask, and protect yourself and all your other colleagues around you as good as possible. If possible, give the chance to colleagues. Even I'm working in administration, and I'm mostly sitting here in my home office with an equal infrastructure I see in my office in my Bremen ACC. So there are chances also to use these new technologies to verify our job conditions. And this will be, I think, a big part also for the future discussion in IFATSEA, how we design in future our several tasks we have in all our different jobs, colleagues who are working surface here in the CNS system, and so on. So yes, one thing which was raised, financing revenue of ANSPs. And I say always, I hope, and this we also like to address, and Costas said already, we addressed this issue already on European level, and we will do this also on a global level. Today, I expect a joint statement by ITF, the International Transport Worker Federation, together with IFATSEA, IFATCA, and IFIMA, with the same direction that we will call states to have a review about the ideas. ANSPs must be in a competition. There must be a global market for air navigation services. I hope there must be a rethinking. My example opposite is always, if we have a fire station in a specific district of a town, and there was 2 years no fire, are we then thinking about shutting down this fire station? And this is, I think, we will raise in the future, that our profession, at least, even I said always in my ACC, there are more technicians and engineers in the house to keep the systems running as air traffic controllers, because the traffic was going down. We are mostly working in the night configuration of air traffic controllers. But the technical infrastructure, this must work. New technology, it will come, and we know this for decades now. With all the new systems, this will come. And what I always like to address, we need really a very good change management, that everybody who's doing a job now know, and who is coming as a young man, as a young engineer, 30 years old now, into our system in an ANSP, that he see for the future, my job description, my profession will see changes, but it's widely guided with training and so on. What I will do, and I did already, I wrote an email to Stephen Creamer, the Director of Air Navigation Bureau, and ask him for a face-to-face meeting as we can travel again. Since Monday in Europe, the aviation is, we see a soft restart of airlines bringing people again, but we need again to address our specific tasks and duties to ICAO in the context of that we are working in a system critical infrastructure. And for sure also we will address this to IATA. We will discuss with CANSO and all the international bodies how we can reliance our system more and more. My message also: continue in following maintenance guidelines. This is, I think, it's a must, and it's a big workload for our profession, that we ensure that the systems are available. Shortly outlook which actions we have taken as IFATSEA Executive Board. Yes, I had to cancel. Usually we would sit today in Darmstadt in Germany for the Executive Board meeting, but due to the travel restriction, we canceled this. We will also do more in a framework like here on webinars to discuss our future objectives from Executive Board side. We had to postpone the 50th IFATSEA Assembly. Even it's the 50th IFATSEA Assembly, I cannot imagine to do this in a webinar like this, because I think in the 50th IFATSEA Assembly we also should a little bit celebrate our profession globally, and so we will postpone the assembly, and as I said, end of September, beginning of October, we also will offer some webinars to discuss professional issues with our member associations. We produced the media message. I think some of us are very active on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and all the other social medias, always to raise. Without ATSEP, you cannot fly. Even there's only cargo flight or whatever. This is the main message we like to address. This is what I said. Yes, aviation is a business driver, and I think everybody of us is hope that we see now a restart of aviation, and that we also come back a little bit more normal to business and tourism and all the other factors which aviation business is hanging on. As from Theo addressed, a good point, safety management systems also for CNS. There was a change in ICAO, and also this again, we like to address to ICAO, please have a review on your decision. CNS is a safety critical infrastructure, and that we also need there a reliable safety management system. We must continue training, implementing globally according ICAO Doc 10057, and ATSEP, all ATSEP globally, and all ATM ANS workers must ensure that the competence is continuously given to ensure that we provide safe services. This we will address on global level, as I said. And finally, I hope that maybe we have a chance that the African regional meeting end of July will take place in Livingstone, but I think Frank is carefully observing the situation. And yes, finally, you have to make a decision if you can book flights and go for visa, etc. But we will see. Okay, so also this was my message to you. Thank you very much for being with you, and stay healthy, please, colleagues.
All right, thank you so much, Thorsten, the FATSEP president. That was a very good advice and push for the ATSEPs globally, not just Africa alone, but globally. And we believe that we're going to take what it takes to push ATSEP forward. We're going to take our place. We're going to create innovations that will change the dynamics of the navigation environment in Africa and the world. So once again, thank you. I'd like to invite my director for Africa, Frank, my namesake, to give us his final word. Frank, please.
First of all, I would want to thank Thorsten for his involvement and participation in this webinar. He's always been with us, and I call him an African now, or let's say German African. I want to thank the Executive Secretary too as well. I would want to thank the Vice President and Costas, the Regional Director for Europe. I thank you very much for always being supportive of activities of ATSEP in Africa. We are very grateful. And namesake, when you called me that we have to do this, I was like, okay, can we do this? But greatly, it's been very successful, and thank you very much for the investment in ensuring that we are able to meet as an ATSEP group and to discuss such relevant issues that are beneficial not only to us as ATSEP, but to the industry as well. And I'm glad to see the faces of Sam Ishak, Khaled, Andrews, and all that. I'm so glad. COVID-19 has prevented us from meeting face to face, but at least we have the sky to help us meet. That's good and great, and I'm very grateful. Also grateful to Madam Boni as well. And Madam Boni, I have taken note of your invitation, and we will respond in due time. In the meantime, congratulations to Sam for participating in the CANSO operational group activities. And I'm sure that being the IFATSEA strategist for the region, in due time, you'll be updating us as to what is going on in that operational group for CANSO as well. We are grateful. Finally, I'm grateful to everybody who has participated in this conference, and it's been great for all of us. And I believe that we have taken some lessons from what has been discussed, issues that have been bothering our minds and all that I believe that have been answered. I like the question on the IT group, the cyber people, as to whether they can be part of IFATSEA or the ATSEP and all that. I think that this question has been ranging on for some time now, and in most of the conferences that we do attend, especially in Africa here, a lot of people come asking me those questions and all that. I believe we have answers now, and clearly in a lot of organizations there are the IT guys who are also performing ATSEP duties as well. Of course, as an ATSEP, I would have a role as a communication guy or a surveillance guy. In the same way, you have someone who is also dedicated for IT staff and all that within the ATSEP infrastructure or ATSEP environment, and that is very good. Good to know and good to hear. I believe that that puts an end to a lot of mind-boggling questions on this issue. Yes, there was also an issue about the emerging technologies and the way we are going in terms of course, when you have technology, what it means is that emphasis on technology and reliance on technology may result in some kind of reduced staff strength. Of course, if you have job that 2-3 people are expected to do with technology, I'm sure that it may require only one person or one ATSEP to do. But that again also raises questions, a lot of issues for ATSEP, thinking through that maybe they could lose their jobs and all that. I don't share that view. I think that technology is good. We have capacity and we have efficiency as well. What is important is that an ATSEP will never lose a job based on technology, because there are other areas that you can channel your expertise into. We have the R&D as well. So when you employ technology, it means that yes, you would have reduced staff, but those staff based on their expertise can't join the R&D section to be able to do a lot more research in the ATSEP environment, and then also future systems that would emerge out and things like that. So I urge our ATSEPs not to be discouraged and not to be thinking about the fact that once you employ technology and you realize a lot, you have so much reliance on technology, it means that they are going to lose their job. No, there's not going to be anything of that nature. I believe that NSPs are aware. The management of NSPs know that expertise is very important in our area, and therefore would ensure that such ATSEPs who would have to give way for technology would find their expertise in other areas that will benefit the organization as well. The other part that I want to urge everybody is that, yes, we are in this kind of pandemic altogether, but it's important that we observe the protocols. While we observe the protocols too, what it means is that we are not able to conduct physical training and all that. it does not mean that we should be sitting aloof without improving ourselves. I think that this is an opportunity for us to improve ourselves based on online services and all that. There are online programs. There are online programs with other ATOS, the approved training organizations. We can take advantage of such training programs online and improve ourselves so that we can be ready at all times, even after the pandemic is over and all that. So let us stay focused. Let us be positive about the situation we find ourselves in, and then ensure that, yes, we'll be happy and move on as life goes on. Because I do not know when this pandemic is going to be over. It appears that it may stay with us or it may not stay with us. But no matter how ever we look at it, we have to be focused and we have to be positive, and ensuring that there are other tools by which we can reach our colleagues in other countries, in other offices and all that. Let us employ all the technology that we have in our disposal to make life very easy for us, and also to help others who also require some kind of support from us in some ways to be able to assist them as well. Thank you very much. And thank you, Frank. Thank you, Thorsten. Thank you, Sam. And thank you, everybody. Khaled, thank you. We lost you a while, but thankfully we have seen you again. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, the Facility Director for Africa, Frank, for that. We're just going to wrap up now. I want to start by appreciating our audience, all the participants who have logged on to this webinar. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for staying with us. Thank you for all the questions that you raised in the Q&A. Unfortunately, we couldn't take all the questions, but we tried to take some of them. But like I said, this conversation will continue after now. A lot of topical issues has been raised in this conversation today. So we're going to continue the conversation beyond now. Khaled, we lost you sometime, but thank God you're back. You have something you want to tell us just for 1 minute? 1 minute, 1 minute. Khaled.
Okay, thank you. Finally, I want to say that despite all this preparation to fight against Corona, and even with the excellent figure showed here in Tunisia, but we are a bit far from what is needed because of multiple factors, the most important of which is the cost. We will have to prepare for a good return from our airports after this crisis. The ATSEP will remain forever the soldier who secure airspace towards the world. Thank you very much for this excellent and rich meeting. Thank you for the effort and the professionalism. I am sorry another time for the connection. You know, it's Ramadan and all the Tunisians are in home in this very, very bad, very hot day. I was honored to be among you, brothers and sisters. Stay healthy and stay safe. Thank you so much. Thank you very, very, very much. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Khaled, for that. I'd like to appreciate all my panelists. Sam is my brother from another country. Sam,
yes.
Thank you for being here. We appreciate all your contributions in this webinar. Thank you once again, Sam, for being here. Andrew from Uganda. Andrew from Uganda. We also appreciate you being here for the time and everything you put in. We appreciate you as well. Thank you so much. Ishaya, Dung, my president in Nigeria. You know, Sam is my president in South Africa. Then Ishaya is my president in Nigeria. So, so I've got two presidents for ATSEP in Africa, South Africa and Nigeria. So Ishaya, we thank you for being here today, and thank you for all your contributions as well. It's been amazing. Khaled, my friend from Tunisia, I also want to appreciate you for also being here as well. Thank you for all your contributions. I want to thank the Executive Secretary of IFATSEA, Cristina, for being here, for finding time to join us. Thank you so much for being here. I want to thank Boni as well for also being here as well from CANSO. My friend, Theo, it's been long, but I saw you last, pretty long. So it's a pleasure to see you again. Thank you for being here as well. Costas, the Europe Regional Director, we appreciate your being here as well. And of course, my president, Thorsten. We thank you so much for finding time to share your thoughts with us today. We appreciate all of your contributions to this webinar today. And just like the Director of Africa said, this is the beginning of the webinars we're going to begin have in Africa. This is just the first one. We're going to have more time of sharing, discussions, conversations, even trainings for ATSEP, under the director's platform. So that we can bring to group competency, to collaborate and collaborate more as ATSEPs in Africa, and be able to solve our problems, within ourselves as we share our experiences, our knowledge, and all that. So Africa can actually boast of a very strong ATSEP community going forward. So it's something that the director said we're going to start to do, and we'll keep pushing it and keep ensuring that those connections are there going forward. So I'd like to thank all of the audience, participants, thank you for being here, and all of my guests. You guys have been amazing. Thank you for being here. So I asked the director to go ahead with the briefing on the regional conference.
Thank you very much. And this is I'm just going to be quick. The Africa Regional IFATSEA meeting, it's an annual event that we normally organize. This year is supposed to be hosted by our friends in Zambia, and actually the venue is Livingston. We are looking at the situation. I have been reluctant to call off the meeting because we are trying to see what is happening. In Africa, we have the FASI strategy group, and they also advise that we need to take our time and see the way the situation is, then we can make a decision on it. So I have been in close contact with Miss Enia Kokumba, and one of the directors also in the air navigation in Zambia, Mr. Harris Banda. They tell me that, I should give them some time. They would make a recommendation in terms of whether to go ahead or not to go ahead. So hopefully before the end of this month, there will be an announcement and we'll know which direction we are going as far as the regional meeting is concerned. Thank you, everybody. Thank you all.
All right, thank you so much, Director. Now, every question that was asked, we have 30 questions on the Q&A. We didn't take all of them, but I'm going to send it to the panelists. They're going to address these questions, and I'm going to send it back to you guys by email. Everybody who registered is going to get the response to the answers. We have 30 questions that was asked by the participants. So we're going to have these questions sent to the panel and our guests from Europe as well, so that people can get a response to these questions. So once again, I'd like to thank everyone, and I appreciate all of you for being here. And let's do it again. Let's do it again, and let's have another webinar and have very insightful discussions. Thank you so much. God bless you all, and stay safe.